Welcome to English Through Ideas podcast, where we learn English through powerful ideas.
Thank you. It is really great to be here for this deep dive today.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this one. So I want to ask you, the listener, a question. What if the single biggest obstacle to your success isn't your bad luck or the economy or, your annoying boss? What if the biggest obstacle is just you?
Right, that is a really heavy question, and it's basically the core idea of what we are looking at today.
Exactly. Today, we are exploring a really intense, tragic, friendly fire incident in Iraq. And it reveals this harsh but honestly life-changing truth about responsibility. We are taking a deep dive into the core concepts from the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin.
Yeah, and before we really jump into these concepts, we need to calmly and impartially set the stage here.
Good point. Go ahead.
The stories we're looking at today come from real, intense military combat during the Iraq War. And we want to be absolutely clear that in this deep dive, we're not taking any political sides regarding the war itself.
Right. Definitely not.
We are simply taking these factual extreme experiences and using them to understand human psychology, effective communication, and how we handle pressure in our everyday lives.
That is such a crucial point because the stakes in these stories are literal life and death. And that kind of strips away all the usual excuses we make in our comfortable everyday lives.
Yeah, it really does.
Which brings us right back to our opening question. Most of us go through life pointing fingers when things go wrong, right? But this book introduces a concept that just flips that entirely upside down. It's called extreme ownership.
And to really understand extreme ownership, we have to look at this one specific morning in Ramadi, Iraq. It was during what the military calls the fog of war.
The fog of war. Can you explain that a bit for our listeners?
Sure, yeah. So the fog of war is a term used to describe just total, absolute chaos on the battlefield. On this specific morning, the air was literally thick with smoke and dust.
Wow. Okay, so visibility is basically zero.
Exactly. And radio communication was completely breaking down. In the middle of all this confusion, a rogue element of Iraqi soldiers who were actually supposed to be allied with the U.S. forces, they strayed far outside their assigned boundaries.
Oh, man. That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
It was. The Navy SEALs in the area saw these armed men in the fog, thought they were under attack by the enemy, and, well, a terrible friendly fire incident occurred.
Which the military calls a blue-on-blue engagement, right?
Yes, exactly. And tragically, an Iraqi soldier died and a SEAL was badly wounded.
Yeah.
It was just a nightmare scenario.
That is just awful. And, in the aftermath of something like that, the military obviously launched a massive investigation. Jocko, who is the commander of the SEAL unit, was ordered to prepare this presentation for his commanding officers.
Right, he had to detail every single thing that went wrong.
Yeah. He gathered the facts, and he had a very clear list of mistakes. I mean, the communication plan was flawed. Specific troops didn't report their locations, and the final identification of the target was just completely wrong.
He essentially had a menu of people he could point to and say, they caused this.
Exactly. But as he reviewed his presentation, this heavy realization hit him. He was the senior leader on the ground.
Right.
Therefore, he felt there was really only one person who truly bore the weight of that failure. So he stood up in a room full of his superiors, his grieving team, and the wounded SEAL, and he told them, there is only one person to blame for this. Me.
It's just a shocking moment. But let's unpack this for a second.
Yeah, please do, because honestly, let me push back on this. It sounds a bit unreasonable, doesn't it?
I mean,
Well, if somebody else failed to use the radio or somebody else literally pulled the trigger, how is that his fault? I mean, it's like if I'm driving a car and my passenger suddenly reaches over, grabs the steering wheel, and crashes us into a ditch.
right, the bad passenger analogy.
Taking the blame for that just makes me a pushover,
Yeah.
How do you take ownership without letting people just walk all over you?
That is a totally natural reaction. We all assume that taking blame means just absorbing punishment. But you have to look at the psychological mechanism at play here.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, when a boss walks into a room and starts looking for someone to blame, what happens to the team? Everyone's brain immediately goes into survival mode.
Oh, yeah. Everyone
Yeah.
just builds a wall, they freeze up.
Exactly. They hide information, they point fingers to protect their jobs and their egos.
Yeah.
But the very second the leader stands up and says, "It is my fault," that invisible threat just disappears.
Oh, wow. Because nobody is getting attacked anymore.
Right. The team's brains switch out of survival mode and into problem-solving mode. By taking total blame, Jocko actually didn't get fired.
Wait, really? He kept his job?
He did. Instead of getting fired, he gained the deep trust of his superiors. They saw a leader who was willing to protect his men, and his team respected him so much that they immediately started looking at their own mistakes to ensure it never happened again.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. You aren't being a martyr, you are taking control of the narrative. And Willink and Babin show how this translates directly to the business world, too.
Yes, the story about the vice president of manufacturing.
Exactly. So this VP launched a new production plan, and it was just failing miserably. He stood in front of the board of directors and blamed the global market. He blamed the sales team for not selling enough. He blamed the plant managers for not working fast enough.
Basically, he was sitting in the driver's seat of your car analogy, just yelling at the passengers while the car drove off a cliff.
Yes, that is exactly what he was doing. But a leadership coach forced him to look in the mirror. The coach explained this really hard truth. A leader cannot force people to execute a plan.
You have to lead them to do it.
Exactly. If they aren't doing it, you are failing to lead. The VP had to swallow his pride and say, I failed to lead my plant managers. I failed to communicate the plan clearly.
And the moment he took that ownership, just like with the SEAL team, the defensive walls came down. They actually started fixing the production line.
Which brings up a fascinating question for you, the listener, right now. Think about a recent frustration or failure at work, or even in your personal life.
Are you blaming the market, your boss, or your family? Or are you willing to ask yourself, what part of this failure can I own?
It's empowering, definitely. But it also leads me to a big counterargument here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Taking the blame unlocks problem solving, sure. But what if the car you are driving is fundamentally broken from the start? What if your team is just inherently lazy or untalented?
Yeah. That is the ultimate excuse, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I would be successful if I just had better people.
Yeah, exactly.
But the authors tackle this directly with a very bold claim. They say there are no bad teams, only bad leaders.
I remember reading that and thinking, come on, there have to be bad teams. Somewhere in the world, bad teams exist.
It sounds impossible. But then they prove it with a story from Navy SEAL training. Specifically, the brutal phase known as Hell Week.
Oh, Hell Week. Just the name sounds awful.
It is. The recruits are broken up into boat crews of 7 men. For days on end, with almost no sleep, they have to carry these heavy rubber boats on their heads, run with them, and paddle them through the freezing ocean in constant races.
And in this particular training class, Boat Crew II was just an unstoppable force. They were winning almost every single race. They moved in perfect unison.
Right. But on the other end of the spectrum, you had Boat Crew VI. They were nicknamed the Smurf Crew because they were made up of the shortest men in the class.
And they were coming in dead last every single time. They were exhausted, frustrated, and spending all their energy cursing and yelling at each other.
Yeah, the leader of Boat Crew VI had basically just accepted defeat. He thought, well, my team is just physically weaker, we were dealt a bad hand, and we're doomed to lose.
So to test this theory of leadership, the instructors ran an experiment. And they didn't give Boat Crew VI a lighter boat. They didn't let them sleep more.
All they did was swap the leaders.
Right. They took the successful leader from Boat Crew II and put him in charge of the failing Smurf crew. And they put the failing leader in charge of the winning crew.
And the result is honestly mind-blowing. Suddenly, Boat Crew succeed. The exact same guys carrying the exact same heavy boat, dealing with the exact same exhaustion. They started winning races.
He started coming in first place. I mean, it sounds like magic.
It does, but it isn't magic. It's the fact that leadership, both good and bad, is entirely contagious.
So why did the swap work so quickly?
Well, the new leader didn't accept the excuse that they were too short or too tired. He didn't complain about the hand he was dealt. He realistically assessed the situation, established a much higher standard of performance, and most importantly, he genuinely believed they could win.
Right, he focused them on a single unified goal. He stopped them from fighting each other and got them to fight together.
Exactly. And we see the dark side of this in the corporate world all the time. The book describes a chief technology officer, a CTO, whose company rolled out a brand new software product.
And it completely failed in the market.
Right. Total failure. And just like the failing boat crew leader, this CTO blamed his engineering team. He blamed the marketing department. And he even blamed the customers for not being smart enough to use his software.
Yeah, the book calls him a tortured genius. I think it's such a brilliant phrase.
It really is.
A tortured genius is someone who accepts zero responsibility because they think their ideas are just flawless. If reality doesn't match their brilliant vision, well, it's the world's fault.
Exactly. The torture genius mindset is just a defense mechanism to avoid taking ownership, and it is pure poison to a team. This CTO refused to change his mindset, and eventually, he had to be fired.
And what happened after that?
Well, once a new leader took over, someone with an ownership mindset, that exact same technology team started collaborating with the rest of the company, and the business rebounded.
Wow. So we have to ask you, the listener, are you playing the role of the tortured genius in your own life? Are you assuming everyone around you just doesn't get it? Or are you looking for ways to elevate their performance?
That's a great question. And elevating their performance requires more than just telling them what to do. You cannot simply order a team to care.
Right, you can't just mandate enthusiasm.
No, you have to get them to believe in the mission. And that requires a deep understanding of what the authors call the power of why.
The power of why. Yes, the underlying logic behind the action.
Exactly. There's a story where the SEALs were given orders to fight alongside Iraqi soldiers. Now, these local troops were poorly equipped, they lacked discipline, and the SEALs felt their loyalty was highly questionable.
The SEALs absolutely hated the idea. They thought babysitting these soldiers was dangerous and just a massive waste of their elite training.
And initially, Jocko agreed with his men. He thought it was a terrible plan. But as a leader, he knew he couldn't just pass down orders he didn't believe in.
And he couldn't just complain alongside his team, right? That just feeds the negativity.
Exactly. He had to step back from the immediate frustration and look at the massive strategic picture. He had to figure out the why.
And he realized something profound. If the American forces didn't train these Iraqi soldiers to eventually secure their own streets, the U.S. troops would be stuck fighting in that country for generations.
Training them was the only actual strategy to win and go home.
Yeah. And once he internalized that deeper strategic mind, why, his entire attitude shifted. He truly believed in the mission.
And because his belief was genuine, he could explain it clearly to his team. The moment the SEALs understood that training these soldiers was their ticket home, the complaining stopped. They fully committed to the task.
Knowing the purpose changes your entire relationship to the work, and there's a perfect business parallel to this in the book, too.
Oh, the CEO with a compensation plan.
Yes, a CEO decided to implement a new compensation plan that actively cut the base pay for her lowest producing salespeople.
Which of course made the mid-level managers furious. They thought this new plan was cruel and would drive all their salespeople to quit and join competing companies.
Right. They didn't understand it, so they silently rebelled against it. But the CEO wasn't trying to be cruel. She just hadn't explained her why.
What was her actual goal?
Her goal was to reduce the company's fixed overhead costs. By lowering those costs, the company could afford to lower the prices of their products.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. And cheaper products would allow the top-performing salespeople to win far more client accounts, ultimately making everyone much more money. It was actually a strategy to aggressively reward the hardest workers.
But a great plan is useless if it exists only in the CEO's head.
Yeah.
Once she realized she had failed to communicate the art, why, she sat down and explained the logic simply and directly.
And the managers had an aha moment. They finally believed in the plan, which meant they could go explain it to their sales teams with actual confidence.
This is exactly why we focus on clear, simple English on this show.
Absolutely. Whether you are coordinating troops in a war zone or just trying to explain a project timeline to your boss, complexity breeds chaos.
The book mentions a military patrol route in Ramadi that was terribly designed. It crossed too many unit boundaries, required communicating on too many different radio frequencies.
It was just dangerously complicated. It had to be simplified to actually work.
Right. People simply cannot execute what they do not understand. If a business bonus structure is so complicated that employees need an advanced math degree to know how they get paid, they will not be motivated by it.
I always say if you have to use complex jargon and huge, confusing words to explain your goal to your team, you probably don't truly understand the why yourself. Keep the language simple. Keep the plan simple.
So true. So if a leader takes ownership, keeps the plan simple, and clearly explains the why, you would think success is guaranteed, right?
You would think so, but there is a catch.
There is a destructive human force that can tear a unified team apart faster than anything else.
The human ego.
Yes, the ego. The book illustrates this danger with a highly equipped advisory unit that arrived in Ramadi. This unit had the best gear, incredible training, and an ego that was completely out of control.
They felt they were superior to the regular army soldiers stationed at the base. So they refused to share their operational plans, and they wouldn't coordinate their locations.
Which is terrifying.
Uh-huh.
In a dense urban war zone, failing to communicate where you are is exactly how friendly fire accidents happen.
Exactly. Because their ego prevented them from acting as a piece of the larger puzzle, the base commander actually forced them to leave.
They missed out on the entire historic Battle of Ramadi because they couldn't put their pride aside. And this failure leads directly to one of the most vital tactical rules in the book.
Cover and move.
Yes, cover and move.
Which essentially just means teamwork. You provide cover fire for your teammates so they can move forward safely, and then they do the same for you.
The authors describe a night operation where a SEAL sniper team, designated OP2, had to move through very dangerous city streets to get back to base.
And they moved quickly, survived a sudden firefight, and made it back feeling pretty proud of themselves. But their commanding chief scolded them heavily.
Which seems harsh, considering they survived.
Right. But they survived taking a massive, unnecessary risk. They failed to coordinate with the other SEAL sniper team, OP1.
They operated as if they were the only people in the world. OP1 had the high ground and could have watched over them, providing cover fire the entire way back.
Yeah. OP2 let their focus narrow so much that they forgot they were part of a larger team. They forgot to cover and move.
And this silo mentality happens in business every single day. There is a story about a corporate production manager who was losing a massive amount of money because his manufacturing line kept shutting down.
And let me guess, he blamed someone else.
Of course. He blamed a subsidiary transport company for not delivering parts on time. He called them horrible and treated them like a sworn enemy.
Wow. He was so blinded by his own department's stress that he had to be coached to see reality. Both his production team and that transport company were owned by the same parent corporation.
Exactly. They were wearing the same jersey.
Hmm.
The real enemy was the rival business competing with them in the market, not the partner down the hall.
It is so incredibly easy to fall into that us versus them mindset. Overcoming it requires actively checking your ego, which goes against our most basic instincts.
It really does. There's a story of a manager named Gary. Gary had a drilling superintendent who blatantly ignored the standard operating procedures.
Oh, I remember this. The superintendent made a rogue decision that ended up costing the company hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes. And Gary was absolutely furious. His ego was bruised because his authority had been ignored. Everything in our human nature makes us want to march into that person's office, yell at them, and assert our dominance.
Right. When someone blatantly breaks your rules, it feels weak to take the blame. It feels like you are letting them get away with it.
But Gary chose to take extreme ownership instead. He walked up to the superintendent, swallowed his anger, and said, "Our team made a costly mistake, and it is my fault. I obviously failed to explain to you why these safety procedures are so critical."
I love this because it is pure psychological jujitsu. When the superintendent saw Gary coming, he was braced for a fight. He probably had his own excuses ready to yell back.
Oh, definitely.
But by taking the blame, Gary completely removed the resistance. The superintendent stumbled forward into agreement. He wasn't defensive anymore, so they could actually sit down and fix the broken communication process.
That is the magic of checking your ego. Cover and move is simply about breaking down silos. Whether you are leading a team, navigating family dynamics, or even learning a new language, you have to build supportive relationships with the people around you.
You cover them so they can move you forward.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's summarize the demands being placed on us here. We need to take 100% responsibility for everything that goes wrong. We need to patiently explain the why using simple English. We need to suppress our egos, practice psychological jujitsu, and constantly coordinate with our team.
It's a lot.
I am exhausted just listing it all. How on earth do people sustain this high level of performance day after day without burning out?
They sustain it through a concept the authors call the dichotomy of leadership. And the foundational pillar of that dichotomy is a phrase that sounds like a complete contradiction.
Which is?
Discipline equals freedom.
Discipline equals freedom. How does restricting yourself give you freedom?
Well, think about it on a purely personal level first. Jocko Willink is famous for having a rule involving 3 alarm clocks.
Right.
3. He sets an electric one, a battery-powered one, and an old-school wind-up one. When those alarms go off in the pitch black early morning, it is the very first test of the day.
Right, and if you hit snooze and stay in the comfort of your warm bed, you fail the test.
Exactly. But if you have the strict, unwavering discipline to force yourself out of bed early, what is the result? You are rewarded with the freedom of extra time.
Ah, I
You have
see.
time to study, time to prepare your gear, or time to work out before the rest of the world is even awake. That strict personal discipline literally purchases your freedom.
And this scales up to teams through what the military calls standard operating procedures, or SOPs.
Yes, SOPs.
Because the SEALs had incredibly strict, heavily drilled routines for absolutely everything. They had a specific way they loaded their vehicles, a specific way they spoke on the radio, and a specific way they entered a doorway.
Now, from the outside, having strict rules for every little movement sounds like it would make you rigid, right?
Yeah.
Like a robot who can't think for themselves.
But the mechanism here works the exact opposite way. Because they had the discipline to automate the basics, they didn't have to waste precious mental energy trying to figure out how to load a truck while bullets were flying.
Right, that discipline freed up their brain power. It gave them the mental freedom to be creative, to think strategically, and to adapt instantly when things went terribly wrong in the fog of war.
That is why leadership is a dichotomy. It is a constant balancing act of opposing forces. You cannot lean too far in one direction. A great leader must be brave, but not foolish.
You have to be confident but not cocky.
You must be willing to take charge and lead, but you also have to be humble enough to follow when a subordinate has a better idea.
Exactly. You have to be close to your team to understand their struggles, but not so close that you lose your authority to make the hard decisions.
If we synthesize everything we've talked about today, true self-improvement is never about being perfect. It is about balance.
Yes.
You cannot be a cold, emotionless machine, but you also cannot be someone who loses their temper at every setback. Extreme ownership requires you to hold all these opposing forces in equilibrium.
So what does this mean for you, the learner? Whether you are trying to master English, leading a stressful project at the office, or just trying to navigate the complexities of your own life, extreme ownership is the ultimate tool for empowering yourself.
Empowering, yeah, because when you blame the global economy, your incompetent boss, or a confusing textbook, you are actively giving your power away to those things.
By removing your excuses, you take the steering wheel back. You gain total control over your own path forward.
It is an incredibly powerful shift in how you view the world.
It is. And to leave you with something to ponder after this deep dive is overlook at the single biggest problem causing stress in your life right now.
Okay.
Even if a large part of it is genuinely not your fault, if you decided to take 100% extreme ownership of it today, what is the very first step you would take to start fixing it?
Thank you for learning with English through ideas. If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe for more ideas, more English, and more growth.